All right, welcome everybody to another Spotlight session with your host, me, Charles Boyett. And today I have a very good friend of mine and an impressive human being with me, Mr. Sean McCartney. How are we doing today, Sean?
We're doing well, Charles. How about yourself?
Man, living the dream, living the dream. Well, actually, let me back it up. It's more of a nightmare right now. We got this ice storm rolling in. I don't know if the world has seen it, but it's kind of crazy around here. It's basically there's no food, there's no gas, it's all gone. It's just like when the hurricane rolled through last year or a little better. So it's wild. It's wild. So I'm glad we're recording while I have power.
I went to 11 different places today looking for propane exchange, and
it's
everybody
that bad out there already.
Yep.
Yeah, I think honestly, Sean, I think a lot of people, especially here where I'm at in Western North Carolina, I think a lot of people have that horrible memory of Helene still on. And so the moment a week ago when it said it was going to be 20 inches of snow, it's been like Armageddon on the street since then. But You know what? At least people got out and prepared this time. So I'm happy about that.
Well, and here in Charlotte, the closest thing we've had to this as far as what they're predicting is 2002. And there were sections of Charlotte that were without power for well over a week. So as soon as they started talking quarter inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch of ice, which most of the power lines around here have been built up to where they can handle a quarter of it. But you get up into a half an inch and you're running the risk of not necessarily the power lines falling, but the tree branches breaking. And tree branches breaking and falling through the power lines is what brings down the power lines, not necessarily the power lines.
So, yeah, man, I was talking with I was talking with my nephew earlier today, and he works for the power line companies here locally. And he was like, man, we're not, they had their update from the top. And so it's like, it's not going to be the snow event everybody was worried about, but we're here. We're expecting half to 3/4 of an inch of ice. And he said, Unc, he calls me Unc, that's enough weight to really take down the lines and snap the power, because between the expansions between pole to pole, that could be hundreds of pounds of ice on that line. So I'm just hoping for the best, but that's not why we're here today, Sean. We're going to talk a little bit about real estate, a little bit about your journey. And so for us getting started here, if you would give us a little snapshot, a little background, how long you've been in the business, why the heck did you get into this business? Yeah, bring us from beginning to current in a minute or less.
Okay. We'll do the best we can staying under a minute.
Yeah.
The big long and short of it is, if we go back to 2004, when I went back to college, or had graduated from having gone back to college, because the first time that I went, I was there in Asheville, went to UNCA, and was not in the right place emotionally, maturity-wise. It was not a good fit. Parents had gotten divorced. I had gone to military school for 2 years. I just wasn't in the right frame of mind. So came back 2001, graduated from USC Charlotte 2004, had planned on going into the U.S. Marshals with a pilot program they had through UNCC. As all plans go, my wife at the time got pregnant with our first child, decided very quickly that in the middle of the night to go God knows where to bring back God knows who was probably not what she wanted to be dealing with a newborn. So Ended up waiting from UNC Charlotte, went into claims work with Progressive Insurance for a while, and did that for about 4 years, sold my soul to insurance, as I say. And after having sold enough of it that I was like, I can't do this anymore, I was looking for something that was going to give me the flexibility to, because by then I had a second child. I'd had my daughter and I now had my son. And it was, what can I do that is going to allow me to at least have some sort of control over how much I work, how long I'm gone? Because I was used to those 4 years with Progressive. I was leaving in the morning before she got up. I was getting home at night after she'd already gone to bed. So, and that just was not working for me. I was a very involved dad. And that just interrupted my flow with being able to spend time with my kid. So, I was thinking of things that I could do. Real estate looked appealing, went and took the test, did really well on it, knew that I liked interacting with people from all different walks of life. Doesn't matter if you lived in a trailer, if you lived in a mansion at the lake up here in Lake Norman, I could talk to you. I could interact with you. We could find something in common. And the idea of taking people from their current situation, and whether it was buying up, buying down, finding space for a father, mother, father-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, somebody that needed to move down and make more space for, whether it was that, so multi-generational, no matter what it was, I felt like that was the place that I could be. And I had almost 10 years of sales experience in retail and district management there. So it felt like a easy transition. So in late 2009, I think October of 2009 is when I got my license. So I've been at it for 16 years, a little bit over that. And I love it. I love interacting with people. I love the fact that real estate is never boring. It is constantly changing. Deal to deal, it is changing. Within the
That's for
deal, it is
sure.
changing. My toes. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, so like 2 minutes, but that was good, man. That was good. I felt like
Yeah,
we
there
really
we
got
go.
a good snapshot. You know, that's interesting. You always find it intriguing, like what people did before real estate, because I think we're just now getting to the point where real estate is often a first career, right? Usually, when I got in the business, I've been doing this for, I said 26 years the other day, and then I did the math. I was like, it's 28 now. It's 28. I've been saying 26 for 2 years. But when I got into the business, way back when, it was nobody's first rodeo, right? So I always like hearing what people did beforehand, because it's interesting seeing, like, you know, the correlation between what they did and how that impacts them today. So be in the insurance world, be it in the sales world, you've got the chops built up to communicate with people before you even get here. You know, that's always like, I think that's always a kind of like it lines up perfectly, even though it's a slightly different industry. Sales is sales. Right. So since you've been in this business, you know, what's the thing you love about it? I mean, yeah, I know you can talk with people. I know you can blend into the environments and all that, but what actually keeps you coming back day after day?
Honestly, the relationships.
Hmm.
The relationships that I have with my clients, both current and past, the relationships that I have with my fellow agents, the relationships that I have with my vendors. I've used the same home inspector, and obviously, disclosure, whoever the buyer wants to use is whoever the buyer wants to use, and we're okay with that. But who I like to use and who I like to work with, I've had the same home inspector for almost 10 years. I've had the same closing attorney for nearly 12 years, same insurance people for probably 7 to 8 to 9 years. So cultivating those relationships, having a relationship with them outside of work, and having an opportunity to foster that, because in a corporate setting, in a traditional corporate setting, you don't always get that opportunity. And quite frankly, I know a
No,
lot of people that are in the corporate world that when they're out of work, they go home and they don't want to even think about work. So cultivating a relationship outside of that is not something they're really looking forward to, because they don't
sure.
want it to mess with their everyday. So that is something I really enjoy. I enjoy really just being able to go in and see all sorts of different properties too. I mean, you'd be lying if you were in real estate for any period of time. You'd be lying if you don't like the opportunity to be able to go up and see some of these places up at Lake Norman, or to go
Sure.
in and walk into some of this new construction and see the new trends that are taking place, and we're old that are new again.
Right.
It keeps me busy. I don't like the idea. That's why I never did it. I never liked the in a corporate setting and just being a cog in the machine. I
Sure.
always like the idea of being able to get out, and whether it's let's necessarily why I'm out and about, but it's having coffee with a lender, or it's having coffee with a potential client, or it's having coffee with a new vendor that I'm potentially trying to cultivate a relationship with.
But
It's
it's not
always
the
moving.
coffee, right? It's not the
No,
coffee.
it's not the coffee.
It's the
That's nothing to do with the coffee,
relationship.
because I
It's the
don't drink coffee.
conversation.
I'm a nice shy guy. But yeah, it's the being able to sit down and interact with people and hear where they are in life and hear where they're looking to get, hear where they've been. Like you were just talking about, it's really cool sometimes journey from wherever they were to begin with to how they got into real estate.
Sure.
Um, so I love being able to get people's stories, share pieces of my story that align with that, and getting to meet as many different people as I can.
I love it. I love it. You know, I do hear some people. I like how you acknowledge that you like looking at pretty homes and cool things, right? But I
Yeah.
like even more that you started with the relationship, right? Because I have talked to some people through the years when I'm like, why are you in this business? They're like, I like looking at homes. I'm like, oh, not enough.
No, no.
Not enough. That's what HGTV is for. But okay, so this is a tough one, and I'm going to get you to scratch your head a little bit.
Okay.
What's some of your really? I mean, you've been doing this at a high level. You know, I have the pleasure of watching you maneuver in your market, and I'm very impressed by you. But what's something that you are proud of? What's a win that you've had in your industry, in your career, big or small, that you're really proud of?
Yeah, if you'll indulge me for a second, I'm going to give you two of them. One is business related, and one is way more personal. So
Okay.
very long story short, had the opportunity to work with a gentleman who used to work for my father when he was in the Army Reserves. My dad retired from the Army Reserves in the early 2000s as a 2-star general. This gentleman was his assistant. We got to know each other. He had a house to sell in Mooresville. He was actually building a much larger house out in another area of Lincoln County. And I had told him from the very beginning of the listing that, hey, I need you to get this refrigerator out of the kitchen because there had been food left in there. And when he and his wife and their kids had moved out to the new place where they were going to be, he had left some food in there, forgot about it, power was off. And first time that I walked in there to, kind of get the house ready, I opened it and almost get knocked backwards. So I sealed it, put tape on it, put a note on it, said, do not open this. And I called the client. I was like, hey, man, I said, you got to get this thing out of here before closing, preferably. And so you're sitting here thinking, well, what does that have to do with anything? So we go all the way through the listing. We find a couple from upstate New York that was looking to move down. They were super excited about it. They come in, make the offer, understand what's going on with the fridge. I tell them, don't worry about the fridge. The fridge is going to be gone. I end up having to tell the client still 2 days before we closed, hey, that fridge is still there, man. You got to get that thing out of there. So what does he do? He, back in the days of Craigslist, calls a guy that he saw on Craigslist who hauls away stuff and says, hey, I've got this refrigerator. Here's my property address. Come get it, please. Well, the guy came and got it. All well and good. Didn't do any damage to the house. But what he did do was he forgot to turn the ice maker off when he disconnected the fridge. And this house was on a well and the power was off. So fast forward 2 days to closing day and the buyers come in for their final walk. They had paid to have the electrical, or not paid, but had set up the electrical to come on the day of closing. So while they're there in the house, the well kicks back on. The ice maker starts just shooting water out of the wall. And before we know it, I get a phone call from the buyer's agent panicking. And I can hear in the background what sounds like water, not rushing out of the wall, but definitely coming out of the wall. She's like, we
Right.
have a quarter to half an inch of water in the kitchen and I can't get it to come off. And I was like, oh my God. I said, I'll be there. So anyway, I rush over to Home Depot. I grab 3 wet vacs. I go over, I meet the buyers there, introduce myself to them because I had spoken to their agent. I'd never met them. We were
Of course.
all ankle deep in water, sucking up water on the day of closing. And because I went out there and because I didn't panic and because I didn't scream at anybody, oh my God, I didn't immediately jump to conclusions about what had happened. We managed to get all of that water soaked up. The cabinets and the wood floors did bow. We did end up having to make an insurance claim, but amazingly enough, we got to closing that afternoon. The entire time from the time that we pumped up all that water to the time that we sat at the closing table, I was on the phone with Nationwide Insurance walking through the claim because my seller was out of town, actually was out of country. And so had already signed his paperwork earlier. And I'm on the phone with Nationwide getting this claim filed. And I had to nurse that deal for almost 2 months after we closed because obviously the damage happened while my guy owned it. So I had to get the check
Sure.
made out to the owner, who then had to sign it over to the new owner and, massage and all of that. And I was super proud of the fact that I did not lose that deal. I did not have to call my client who was out of the country and tell him, hey, dude, sorry, I don't know what in the world happened with this, but here's where we are, and made friends out of those people that bought that house as well.
If that's not full service, dude, I don't know what
Yeah.
is.
Yep.
That's crazy. So you kept that
Kept
one
that one
together.
together.
All right. I'd be proud of that one
Yeah.
too.
So then the more personal one, and I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but so this was for my daughter.
Kristen's crew.
My 19-year-old, who was absolutely the apple of my eye and who I adored more than anything in this world. And I love her brother to death. But she was my first, and she was around for almost 6 years before he came into the world. She passed away back in 2021, very suddenly, very tragically, while she was off at college in New Jersey. For basically the remainder of 21, the majority of 22, and really honestly, even into the early parts of probably first quarter of 23, I could not get back into the business. I didn't have the emotional cachet. I couldn't figure out who I was without my kid. I was the father of 2 kids who now only had 1 and couldn't figure out where to fit myself back into the regular world, and had all these fears of, somebody coming up with something that was bothering them that was really trivial in the grand scheme of things, and me biting their head off because, I lost my kid. What are you talking about? You got to be kidding me. That's so nothing to even worry about. And what I'm really proud of is that in early 23, I had a couple of friends who had asked me to do some deals for them, and I slowly but surely got back into it. And once I got my feet under me and realized that that story now could be more of an inspiration for others that I did come in contact with, not just through real estate, but just in regular life, who had lost kids or who had lost a spouse, lost a sibling. I now had an opportunity to share with them what my experience had been like, listen to what their experience was like, talk about how we turned that into a positive and got back into life, basically. And now, here we are. It'll be 5 years come this September, and I am as strong emotionally and mentally as I've ever been, and extremely proud of my son who just turned 18 last week and um, just recently got accepted into LSU and is trying to decide between LSU, App State, Virginia Tech, and a couple other places. So he's doing amazing, and I really feel like it's the what he saw in me, what he saw in his mother. We've been divorced. We were divorced before she passed away, but we've
Right.
been co-parents very, very well together. And so it just, carrying her memory, creating the scholarship fund in her honor has just been something that has made me incredibly proud as a dad and as a real estate professional, that I was able to get back out here and not let this take away something that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I do. I would imagine, that's such a tough story. I've heard it several times, and it gets me every time you tell about it. But I would imagine your son's very proud of you, and I would imagine that you have set quite the example on how to mourn, how to stand up, how to take care of the loved ones around you. And I'm sure you've set just beyond a wonderful example. And the only bad thing about that story was the LSU part. Go Gators. That's right. But brother, you're one of the strongest human beings I've met, man. And I love you. At the end of this, I'm going to ask you to tell everybody how we can learn a little bit more about Kristen's crew as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Very
Thank
welcome.
you. Okay, let's get back. Let's get back here. Being in this industry, this is a tough one. All right, I want you to put your thinking cap on. You have seen it all. You have seen refrigerators that stink. You have seen water in the wrong places. Yeah, I'm sure there's a million other stories as well. But what's this? What's a lesson that you have learned that this industry has taught you that you wish you would have learned when you got your license?
Oh man, there are quite a few, but if I was to say one, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Mm.
Don't feel like that because you're the new kid on the block that you somehow have to put up this facade that you know what's going on, and don't do that with other agents. Don't do that with your clients. If you truly don't know the answer to something, do not be afraid, and I will stand on a rock and scream from the top of the mountain. Your clients and other agents and whoever else you're dealing with business wise will appreciate and respect it more than they will you standing there trying to fumble through giving them an answer that doesn't make sense. Tell them, hey, you know what? That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that right now, but you know what? I've got a couple of different places that I can go for that info. Let me make a couple of phone calls, and can I get back to you by the end of the day or within the next day or so, whatever that may be. That is going to carry so much more positive weight with it than if you try to fumble your way through something and come up with something that absolutely makes no sense at all and everybody can see through it. Or you come up with a really good BS answer, and then it turns out, a couple days later, even weeks down the road, yeah, that was wrong. That was probably not what we should have done.
Yeah, it sounded good.
Yeah, it sounded good, but you know what? Yeah, I probably shouldn't have said
Well,
that.
That's incredible advice, man. I think that gets a lot of people in
Yes.
trouble, like, because we're all entrepreneurs, right? To some level, we're all self-employed, and people like looking like they know all the answers, have all the answers. But in this world, man, it's not about us having the answers; it's about doing what's right by the client. And so, I think that's incredible advice.
I think we spend, especially in real estate. I mean, it happens in a lot of other industries as well, but especially in real estate, everybody's about how do I look, how do I present, how do I come across. And I can tell you right now, you can be the most dressed up, polished, beautiful person in the world, but if you don't say things that are beneficial and honest and truthful, all of that facade eventually will. Maybe a few years. I know some people still in the business that have that. Not naming names, but it will eventually erode away because you will eventually get caught in something that you've said that you probably shouldn't have said because it wasn't right.
Yeah, that's true.
So
That's true.
that would be.
So if
my
you're
best.
listening, be straight up with your clients, ladies and gentlemen. Be straight up
Yep.
with them. Let's talk a little bit about the future,
Sure.
Sean. You've had a very successful run. You've done good things out there. You've done good business. Like I said, I get a chance to watch it from 30,000 feet, and I'm very impressed with you as a human and as a producer. But what are you building towards, man? What's the future look like for Sean McCartney?
I would really like, and I don't know that I would have said this pre Kristen, I would really like to get into a position of leadership where I am helping guide other agents in their careers. A broker in charge position would be great if it extended beyond that and became something similar to what you do for us here at Energy. That would be awesome. But I've done the solo agent. I did a team for a very short period of time, both at a previous brokerage and in
Hmm.
other jobs. And so I have no problem working with others, but I've also been
Sure.
able to do the solo thing. But my biggest thing is if my name's going to be on it, it's going to be done right. And so I
Mm.
think if I can instill that in other agents from a leadership role that, hey, your character means everything. And if you do things the right way, if you prepare your paperwork, if you communicate with your clients, if you communicate with all other parties honorably, and with good intention, you can make a really good business in this, or make a really good life of this business, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Sorry. And so I'd love to be in a
Yeah,
position where I could help people with that, because I know that's where a lot of people struggle is,
sure it
you
is.
don't know what you don't know until you get into the throes of it. And class will teach you a lot, but class doesn't teach you practical application. And
Right.
so when you come out of school, yeah, maybe you made a 95 on your state exam, but you've never done a deal. And when you get across the way from somebody who's a big blowhard and is trying to dominate the conversation, and you feel like you're over in the corner, without any help, I want to be the person that can kind of walk you through that and say, hey, you know what? Here's what he's saying or she's saying. Here's the response I would come back with. And my mother, to bring a little anecdote into here, my mother always told me, and I was raised in the South my entire life, you will catch way more flies with honey than you will with vinegar.
That's right.
And I don't care if
That's a mom staple right
exactly.
there.
And I don't care if you're getting yelled at 6 ways from Sunday by somebody. If you are kind in your response, one, you throw them off kilter or off balance, because they're like, wait a minute, I just
Sure.
screamed at you and told you you were terrible. Why are you being nice to me? And two, it generally brings down the temperature of the room and can actually have cooler heads prevail to where a conversation that is actually useful is had, as opposed to just two people, screaming and hollering at each other.
Truth. That is true. When the two bullheads go, I mean, nothing really gets
No,
solved. And you know who the loser is,
the
especially in this
client.
industry? The clients. Yep. Yep. Well, dude, I'll tell you what. I look forward to one day seeing you in that seat, because I know you and me make one heck of a leader. And I think everything you just said right there is the absolute right reason that one would take that step into that leadership role. It's not a I didn't, it didn't sound like it was a title. Didn't sound like it was a position. Sound like it was coming from a place of truly helping people, which I admire, man. So I look forward to seeing that one day.
Appreciate it.
All right, so we're on the home stretch here, buddy. One question. This one, I want to talk just a smidge about energy. We're focusing on here, focusing on
Sure.
you, but I do want to talk a little bit about where we're at. You pretty much been on this ride the entire time with energy, right? We came over together, same time. We came over right in the very beginning, and so while we still are, doing a lot of growing, we're still developing. I would like to know: is there been something in the past 10 months since you've been here at Energy that made you feel like you knew you made the right decision to come here?
What I think I love most about energy, and it's not. I'm gonna preface this by saying some people want to just race to the finish and don't really care
Sure,
what the journey was getting there. They're just like, I want to get to the end.
sure,
What I love about what Peter and Aaron have established here, and I knew when I was making a move. I mean, obviously, I had met you, I had met Allison and some others that made me understand and know that from a leadership standpoint, from a friendship standpoint, from a business learning standpoint, this is where I wanted to be as far as energy is concerned. I also knew that the experience that I had, or that not that I had, but that Peter and Aaron had when they were helping bring EXP public, when they helped to bring Real public, I knew that they knew how to build a solid foundation and get that foundation in place, as opposed to pouring a footer, to make a real estate example, pouring a footer and going ahead and framing and forgetting that they left 3 footers, undone. These
right,
guys are making sure that at each opportunity milestone, they are reassessing where they are, reassessing where they've been, reassessing where they want to go, and they are making sure that they work on those weaknesses as they advance, as opposed to what I saw at EXP personally, which was, huge growth. And yet onboarding was taking forever. Client or not client, but
Right.
agents were getting paid for a week, 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks on their deals. Um, and that wasn't happening to everybody, but it was happening. I was hearing about it enough that I
Sure.
that I knew those were
Sure.
issues, and we experienced some of the same ones with Epic. I can say that I haven't. If my paperwork is turned in and it's turned in right, which it always is, I get paid within a day or two of getting my deals closed.
Right.
The operational efficiency is there, and I expect to continue to
Sure.
improve and expend and continue to be tweaked because they want to make sure that when that inevitable growth occurs, we're ready for it as opposed to having to play catch up.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. And just so we don't sound like we're poo pooing
And
on
definitely
people,
not.
right? I think of those other brands, I think they've probably they maybe got that tightened up
Absolutely,
already.
absolutely.
But you're right. What you said, you're absolutely right. It's very easy for those types of things to happen when you're in that startup growth phase if you're focused on growth. But that it comes back to one of the things that really made me really want to go on this journey with them is businesses and brokerages, especially in the past, really since technology has been coming on strong, so the past 20 something years, what it seems like brokerages are constantly trying to optimize, and that ultimately means sometimes stretching very thin in the name of chasing the almighty dollar. And I understand, not knocking that. Everybody's trying to make money here. But what I liked about the way Peter and Aaron went about putting this together is they didn't start with the how do we grow faster, how do we make more money. It started with a conversation around what is the agent experience going to be like. And let's be honest, getting people paid is one of the number one things that will make or break your relationship with your agents. And so, but that was that's a piece of it. They didn't just sit down and say, oh, how do we get people paid? It was, what do we need to focus on to make sure the agent is happy from day one, at day 30, at day 365, whatever the case is. And so I agree with you. I think they have paid a lot of attention to the foundation and building that foundation with all the footers, as you used. And that way, when the growth comes and when it really starts taking off, which I'm actually starting to feel that right now, to be honest with you, that there's no, or at least minimal cracks in the foundation, right? Nothing's perfect. Nothing ever will be perfect. But I will tell you, the leadership team here, the inside of the agent success team, everybody, they are hyper focused on the agent experience and making sure they feel, even if there was a crack, right? They make sure the agent doesn't feel it,
Exactly.
right? And that's very special.
Well, and I think,
It is.
I think to relate it back to us as agents, I think the best client experience is when an agent can identify where there might be a problem and take care of it before the client ever even knows it's there. Because I've had
Exactly.
conversations with clients who they didn't realize that their deal was incredibly difficult because I made it look really, really
Sure.
smooth. But when we got done
Right.
and we closed and we sat down and we had a drink afterwards, or met back at the house, I'd say, "So remember when blah 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 happened?" And they're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Well, here's how it got taken care of." And they just look at me like, "Wow, what? Oh my goodness, I didn't even
Right.
know." I was like, "Exactly, because you didn't need to know. You had your own stress.
Didn't even know. Yep.
I needed you to be able to work
Right.
through what you were working through with the lender. I was going to take care of what was going on the backside." So same thing. I love that.
Perfect
I love
analogy.
that
Yeah. Same thing.
we're not feeling that pressure that we have to do something to fix it. It's being
Right.
taken care of as things are moving along.
Right. I love it. I love it. All right, man. We're down to the final question of the day. And this one's going to, I think you've dropped a lot of good nuggets to help people that might be listening. But this one, we're going to get real specific. This industry's been up and down and all over the place for the past couple of years. I mean, there's been a lot of fear. There's been a lot of uncertainty around this industry. And for the first time in a while, I can feel the agent sentiment improving. I can feel people being a little bit more optimistic, especially once those rates drop down under 6%. Be it just by this much, but they came down. What's a piece of advice you would offer an agent? It doesn't matter how long they've been in, whatever. But what's a piece of advice you would offer an agent that's finding troubles navigating today's landscape?
Align yourself with people that are interested in sharing what they know.
There
Don't
it is.
align yourself with people who, when you ask them a question, they're like, "Well, I could share what I do, but maybe you want to think about doing this." And hedging their bet, so to speak, and sharing information with you.
Sure.
Align yourself with people who, when you ask a question, you get an answer, and it's a constructive answer, and it's a, "Hey, this is what I've done." because nobody needs to come into this business and reinvent the wheel. And if you feel like you have to, you're probably in the wrong place.
That's solid advice right there, because I got a spoiler alert for everybody that thinks they got the magic sauce. You don't, right? You don't. That same video you watched on YouTube to learn all this, we all watched the same video. But anyways, I think that's absolutely right. Putting yourself in the right environment with the right people, whether that's a team, whether that's a brokerage, whatever the case is, just make sure that you're in a place that people are pouring back into you.
Absolutely.
Right? Because let's face it, us as agents, we're the ones paying the bills around here at the brokerages, you know? So find a brokerage or team that's going to pour back into you equally. So, man, I appreciate it. That was solid advice. Well, John, I really appreciate you spending some of your time with me today. For those that are tuning in, I would love to put your socials out there. How can we connect with Kristen's crew? How can we find you on social media? Give us the rundown on where we need to go find you.
So everything, almost all my socials are Sean McCartney, Realtor, or Sean McCartney. If you search me on Facebook, search me on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, you're going to find some variation of that.
You doing dances?
What's that?
You doing dances?
I'm not doing dances.
On TikTok?
I'm not doing dances. My dog does a lot of running around and does some silly stuff, but I'm not dancing. Maybe that'll be the next iteration of Sean. I don't know, but
Don't
not
do
right
it,
now.
Don't do it.
And then as far as Kristen's crew is concerned, we're trying to get more presence out there, because that is something that her mom and I have been trying to work on, whether or not we want to hire a social media manager. But if you go to Kristen's crew, and that's Kristen with a K and an E, so KRISTENS crew with a KREW on Facebook, you can find her page there. There's lots of information about some of the events that we've done, lots of cute little videos that girls that she played soccer with, over her 15, 16 years that she played, have done, former teachers, former coworkers, former college friends. It's run the gamut. I mean, she had a huge impact. And each year, and we just did it this past year, was her first. We did the Kristen's Crew Weekend Bash, which comprised of a 5K music night in the community that her mom and I live in, and a soccer event, because she played soccer from the time she was 3.5 until right before she passed, the summer before she passed at 19. And all the money that is raised through those 3 events goes to the Kristen McCartney Perseverance Scholarship, which if you go to bold.org and search Kristen McCartney Perseverance, you will bring up the page that has her scholarship and all the information about it. Very quickly, it's a $2,500. We just increased it to $2,500 this year based on how we did in our fundraising in October. But it's a $2,500 scholarship. We give out 2 of them a year, and it's to any young woman in the state of North Carolina that's a junior or senior in high school. Their only thing that they have to do to apply for the scholarship is they have to write an essay about something that they persevered through. Very short story. Kristen had epilepsy. Triggered by the sun, very rare version called sunflower syndrome. Only 1% of people that have epilepsy in the world are affected by it. It predominantly affects females. And she played soccer, was a 2-time state cup champion, goalie. Never let it define her, never let it keep her from doing the things that she wanted to love, or things that she wanted to do and loved, excuse me. And so that scholarship is set up to award young ladies who have gone through it. And I could talk for an hour on the different women that we have given that scholarship to and what they've gone through. It's amazing, but I'll save that for another day. But it's awesome, and we love being able to give back in her name.
Well, Sean, thank you so much for sharing all this today. Got a little bit of an emotional ride for us, but that's okay. I enjoyed that conversation.
What keeps us
and
human.
For those of you tuning in, that's right. You're absolutely right, brother. And you know me, I'm all dad, right? That's so it hits me in the heart every time we talk. For those tuning in, thank you so much for sharing some of your time with Sean and I today. We really appreciate you listening. As we ramble on, we joke, and we share a little bit of emotion along the way as well. And if anybody would like to learn more about Sean, Kristen's crew, or that, please do. I'll have in the edits, I'll have all the contact information. Please go connect with him. He's a good human being. He's doing good for the community, and you won't regret that conversation. Sean, any parting words?
Be safe. Stay warm. Stay out of the ice.
That's right. Yes. And if y'all are anywhere, apparently in all of North America, you got some ice coming. It looks like it. So bundle up out there, guys. Be safe. And we'll see you next time on the Spotlight Session.
Thanks,
Have a good day.